The rain started to come down in sheets, smothering the sounds of the world outside. The storm was the perfect cover, loud, disorienting, and relentless. The team set off, their heavy equipment stashed in large trucks that cut through the wet dirt road with ease. Their destination? The mine, buried deep in the mountains. As they neared the entrance, the only sounds were the rain hammering against the metal of the trucks and the occasional crack of thunder above. There were no guards in sight. The mine was closed for the night, and most of the staff had already gone home. Still, they couldn't afford to be seen. Lila took the wheel of one of the trucks, and Max drove the other. The vehicles rumbled through a dense patch of trees and finally reached the old rusted gates of the mine. Victor surveyed the area. "No one's here. This is it." Emma tapped into her tablet, typing rapidly. "I've got the feed on the security cameras," she said. "All loops are in place. The systems won't register any changes until we're gone." Lila checked her watch. "We've got about 20 minutes before the storm gets worse. We need to move fast." Max grabbed his bag and slung it over his shoulder. "Let's go. I'll clear the path for you guys." With that, the team made their way into the mine's lower entrance, a small service tunnel used for transporting equipment in and out of the site. The old walls echoed their movements as they proceeded cautiously, the sound of their boots muffled by the pounding rain outside. The storm had intensified, and the tunnels grew colder the further they went. The smell of damp earth mixed with the smell of old machinery, left to rust for years. This was a relic of the past, but it was exactly what they needed. The deeper they went, the more they could feel the weight of the earth pressing down on them. The air grew cooler, and the smell of wet stone replaced the dampness of the tunnel. The walls were jagged, and overhead the ceiling was low in some areas. They moved in single file, walking slowly but steadily toward the first of the old mining machinery they had come to use. Emma checked her tablet again. "We're almost there. I've got the vault location mapped. We'll be on it in 5 minutes, but the drill won't work unless we get the machinery set up." Victor nodded. "We'll get it done. Max, get the drill ready. Emma, stay on the systems. Lila, you stay by the exit. I'll supervise." The team split into their roles without hesitation. They had trained for this moment, knew the risks, and understood the stakes. The adrenaline was building, but there was no fear, just focus. The machinery had been left behind years ago when the mine had moved operations above ground. It was huge, clunky, and more suited for tearing through rock than anything else. But to the team, it was perfect. They could use it to tunnel directly into the vault. Lila stood near the rear of the group, keeping watch over their exit. Her hands were cold but steady, the calm in the storm of activity. She knew this was the critical part, getting in and getting out without anyone noticing. The storm was on their side, but that wouldn't last forever. As the machine roared to life, the rest of the team joined in, positioning themselves around the machinery. The drill began to grind against the earth, its sound now deafening against the storm. But that was the point. No one above ground would hear a thing. The drill tore through the rock with a deafening screech, its massive gears grinding against centuries-old stone. Victor stood in the middle of the team, his face grim and determined as he watched the heavy machine work. Each turn of the drill brought them closer to their goal, the vault, hidden deep beneath the mine, holding millions of dollars worth of diamonds. The storm raged outside, masking the noise of their operation, but it wouldn't last forever. Time was a luxury they couldn't afford. "How's it going, Max?" Victor asked, his voice steady but urgent. Max, who was handling the controls of the drill, wiped sweat from his brow as he adjusted a lever. "It's slow, but we're making progress. This rock's tougher than I thought, but we're getting through." Emma stood next to him, her eyes glued to her tablet, fingers tapping rapidly. "We've got 15 minutes until the first power outage hits. That's when the security system will reset. If we're not inside the vault by then, we'll be locked out." Lila, keeping a lookout near the exit, glanced back at the group. "You better hurry. I don't like the way the storm's picking up. If the winds get any worse, we won't be able to move the trucks." Victor nodded, but his focus never wavered from the drill. "We're not backing out now. Keep it moving, Max." The machine's growls echoed through the tunnel as the team worked in unison. The storm outside continued to intensify, and the deafening noise of the rainfall mixed with the mechanical hum. The deeper they went, the closer they came to the vault. It was a race against time. After what seemed like hours, the drill finally came to a halt with a violent shudder. Max grinned, the sweat from his forehead mixing with the dust that had accumulated on his face. We've hit the vault's exterior wall. This is it. Victor's eyes narrowed. Everyone in position. Get ready. With a flick of his hand, Max activated a set of explosives. It was a controlled charge, just enough to weaken the wall without causing a cave-in. The flash of light and the deafening boom echoed down the tunnel. When the dust cleared, they saw the vault's steel door, scarred but still intact. Emma was already at the panel. I've bypassed the security systems, but we still need to open this manually. Lila, pass me the gear. Lila handed Emma the toolkit, her movements swift and precise. They'd practiced for moments like this. Emma's fingers danced over the small tools as she worked on the lock, her face tense in concentration. I don't want to hear a beep, Victor muttered, his eyes scanning the tunnel, nerves still taut. We don't know how long it'll take for someone to notice something's wrong. I've got it, Emma said triumphantly. The vault's door clicked open with a heavy metallic sound. Slowly the massive door creaked inward, revealing the diamond vault in all its glory. Rows upon rows of glass cases glittered under dim lights, each one housing the rarest gems imaginable. Max couldn't help but whistle. Damn, this is what I'm talking about. Victor held up a hand. Focus. Grab the biggest stones. Don't waste time. The team moved into the vault. Each member quickly scanned the room, assessing which diamonds to take. The most valuable stones were set aside in special bags that Victor had brought along. No one spoke as they worked. Each knew the risks, each knew their job. Victor watched the team's progress with the cold precision of a leader who had seen this all before. Every piece had to be perfect. The loot had to be irreplaceable. The pressure of getting in and out was immense, but they had the skills and the plan. Nothing would go wrong. Nothing could go wrong. Emma was first to finish, placing the last diamond into her bag. Done. We've got everything we came for. Victor nodded, his jaw tightening. We move now. Let's get to the exit. Just as they were about to make their way back toward the tunnel, a flash of lightning lit up the cavernous vault. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The storm outside and the distant rumbling thunder, punctuating the moment. Max was the first to break the silence. Let's go. I don't like the idea of staying down here any longer. The team turned to leave, but as they made their way back down the tunnel, something shifted. A strange rumbling vibration coursed through the earth. The ground seemed to tremble beneath their feet, and the sound of the drill from earlier still echoed. Wait, did you hear that? Lila's voice was low, laced with unease. Emma looked up from her tablet. It's not the storm. It's coming from somewhere deeper. Could be a malfunction in the system. Victor's face tightened. No time for guessing. We stick to the plan. Keep moving. The rumbling grew louder, and the air began to hum with an unsettling energy. The storm outside was now a full-blown tempest, but inside the mine, something felt off. The sound of the drilling machinery still rang through the tunnels, but now there was a different kind of tension in the air. The ground seemed to shake harder, the storm's roar drowned out by a new, ominous sound. We've got company, Victor muttered, his eyes narrowing as he adjusted his pace. The storm outside hadn't been the only thing covering their tracks. Something else had shifted, and it was coming for them. Max clenched his fists. We need to get out, now. But just as they turned to make their way toward the exit, a flash of light erupted from deeper in the mine. For a brief second, the entire tunnel lit up, and the team's hearts skipped a beat. It wasn't lightning. It was a light from inside the mine, a flash that wasn't part of their plan. The sudden flash of light from deeper in the mine caught them all off guard. For a split second, it seemed as if the world around them had frozen. Everything stood still except for the deafening roar of the storm outside. Victor's eyes narrowed as he scanned the tunnel, trying to assess what was happening. The rumbling vibrations beneath their feet had grown stronger, and now this strange light illuminated the darkness of the tunnel. Stay sharp, Victor said in a low voice, his hand instinctively moving toward the weapon hidden in his jacket. The last thing they needed was a surprise confrontation. Lila, who had been keeping an eye on the exit, now looked back nervously. What the hell was that? It's not like anything I've seen before. Could be more security down here. Max cracked his neck. Doesn't matter. We still have to get out. We've got the diamonds and there's no way I'm sticking around for whatever that is. Victor motioned for the team to move faster. No time to waste. We stay focused and get to the exit. We deal with the rest later. The group continued down the tunnel, the sound of their hurried footsteps the only noise apart from the storm outside. But the closer they got to the exit, the more palpable the tension became. The rumbling hadn't stopped. In fact, it had intensified, growing deeper and more persistent. It was as if the mine itself was alive, reacting to their presence. Emma, who had been absorbed in her tablet, glanced up at the others. Guys, something's wrong. My feed's being interfered with. I can't get a clear connection to the surface cameras. Something is scrambling the signals. Great, Max muttered. Just what we need. The tunnel ahead of them seemed to stretch endlessly, the walls closing in as the vibrations grew stronger. They moved as fast as they could, but the path wasn't linear. There were old mine shafts, abandoned storage areas, and intersections, each one potentially a trap. They had to be cautious, and they couldn't afford to make a wrong turn. Then suddenly the ground gave way beneath them. The tunnel floor cracked, sending a burst of rocks tumbling down as a section of the earth collapsed. Everyone stumbled, barely keeping their balance as dust filled the air. Victor cursed, instinctively grabbing Emma's arm to steady her. Everyone all right? Max nodded, his voice filled with irritation. Yeah, but now we're really screwed. We've got a problem, Lila said sharply. The exit is blocked off by the collapse. We can't go back that way. Victor's mind raced. They were trapped. Emma's face turned pale as she checked her tablet again. I can still get a connection to the mainframe, but I've got no idea what's going on down here. Something is blocking us. The mine security system might be malfunctioning, or worse, someone else might be here. Max's eyes widened. You mean we're not the only ones down here? Damn it, we need to move. Fast. Victor stepped back, taking a moment to survey the situation. The storm outside wasn't the only thing masking the noise. It was the entire mine. Whoever or whatever had caused the disruption down here had to be connected to the mine's deeper operations. They'd need to find a way out, and fast, before they were caught in the middle of something they couldn't control. All right, Victor said firmly, his mind already working through the options. We're not going back. There's another exit further down the old shaft. It's an old maintenance tunnel used by the miners. We head there. Max clenched his jaw, clearly unhappy with the detour. And you're sure it's still there? Victor met his gaze. It has to be. It's our only shot. Let's move. The group pressed on, weaving through the dark corridors of the mine. Their footsteps were now muted under the weight of the ground above them. As they made their way deeper, they realized that the layout was more complex than they had initially thought. This was no ordinary mine. It was a labyrinth of tunnels and shafts, many of them abandoned or forgotten over the years. The storm outside continued to rage, its violent gusts rattling the old tunnel walls. But the real danger wasn't the storm. It was the uncertainty of what lay ahead. They could hear the faintest sound, like a distant hum or a low thrum, reverberating through the air. It was almost as if the mine itself was alive, and it didn't want them there. The farther they traveled, the stronger the vibrations grew. It wasn't just a storm anymore. Something was shaking the mine from within, and the team could feel it in their bones. Suddenly, Lila froze, her eyes wide with alarm. Do you hear that? Someone's coming. Victor's heart raced. He signaled for everyone to stop and hide in the shadows. They pressed against the cold stone walls, trying to remain out of sight. The sound of footsteps echoed down the tunnel, growing louder as someone, or something, approached. Max tightened his grip on the bag of diamonds, his knuckles white. This is not good. Victor motioned for everyone to stay still. The sound grew closer. Every breath felt like a potential giveaway. The footsteps finally stopped, just a few yards from where they were hidden. A low voice carried through the tunnel, muffled but clear enough to understand. I know you're here, the voice said with quiet authority. You won't escape this time. Victor's stomach sank. Someone had been waiting for them. The footsteps grew louder, echoing off the walls of the mine like a distant drumbeat. Victor's heart pounded in his chest, the adrenaline surging through his veins. He motioned for everyone to stay silent, his eyes scanning the dim tunnel ahead. There was no way they could stay hidden forever. They had to make a decision, and fast. Max's hand gripped his bag of diamonds tighter. "We need to move. If we get caught, this whole thing's over." Victor held up his hand, signaling for the team to remain still. He took a slow, deliberate step back, moving them into an alcove formed by the natural rock. "Quiet," he whispered, his eyes locked on the tunnel ahead. "Let's see who's coming." The footsteps grew nearer, the air seeming to vibrate with each step. The team was now pressed against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. The darkened mine seemed to close in around them, its oppressive silence broken only by the storm outside and the sound of those approaching footsteps. Then as the figure came into view, Victor's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just one person. Two figures appeared, both dressed in dark tactical gear, their faces concealed by masks. The team was outnumbered. They had no choice but to remain hidden and hope the strangers passed by. But the figures didn't move past. Instead, they stopped just a few feet away from the alcove where Victor and his team were hiding. Victor's mind raced. Who were they? Were they another team of thieves, or had the authorities caught wind of the heist? "We've got to flush them out," one of the masked figures said, his voice low and menacing. The second figure grunted in agreement. "Yeah, if they're down here, we can't afford to leave them alive. We know what they're after." Victor's pulse quickened. They were after the same diamonds. These weren't just security. These were competitors, and they weren't about to let the team escape with their haul. "What the hell is this?" Lila whispered under her breath, her eyes wide in shock. "We need to act now," Victor whispered, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "Move out of the alcove on my signal. We need to take them by surprise." Max's eyes flicked nervously to the two strangers, then back at Victor. "You really think we can take them? They're armed." "We have no choice," Victor said. "They won't hesitate to kill us." There was a brief silent moment as the group braced themselves. The two figures were still talking, oblivious to their presence. The first figure moved forward, his boots scraping against the rocky ground. "Let's check the shaft up ahead. They might have gone that way." Victor nodded. "Now!" In one fluid motion, Victor led the charge, stepping out of the shadows and lunging toward the first figure. He tackled the masked man to the ground, knocking him off balance. The second figure spun around, drawing a gun from his holster. But Emma was faster. She grabbed a heavy rock from the ground and hurled it at the gunman, striking him in the chest. The man stumbled backward, momentarily stunned, giving Lila the opportunity to rush in and disarm him. The first masked figure struggled beneath Victor, his hands clawing for the knife at his side. Victor slammed a fist into his face, knocking the wind out of him. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," Victor growled. The man grunted, trying to twist free, but Victor was too strong. He grabbed the man's wrist and twisted it, forcing the knife to fall from his grip. "Who are you?" Victor demanded. The man spat blood onto the ground. "You really think you're the only ones who can get in here? This is our territory now." Victor's eyes narrowed. "You're thieves like us, but you made the mistake of trying to take what's ours." The gunman, still dazed from the rock to his chest, was trying to regain his footing. Lila stepped in, her eyes flashing with determination as she aimed the gun at him. "Move, and I'll put a bullet in your head. Don't test me." The man raised his hands in surrender. "We're not here to fight. We were hired to secure the vault, not to kill anyone. But if it's a fight you want, we can make it happen." Victor's lips curled into a smile. "I'm not interested in fighting. I'm interested in getting out with what's mine." Max approached, still clutching the bag of diamonds tightly. "What's the deal with these guys, Victor?" "They're competitors," Victor said, his voice low. "They've been hired to stop us. Looks like they've been tracking us from the start." Emma, still scanning her tablet, spoke up. "We need to get moving. There's more interference in the system now. Whoever these people are, they've got the ability to block our signals." Victor clenched his jaw. "We're not staying for a showdown. We've got the diamonds. Let's take these guys out and get to that maintenance exit." The masked man Victor had pinned to the ground let out a groan. "You think you're the only ones who've been working this job? We've already got the whole mine mapped. You won't get out without us knowing. Victor stood, brushing the dust off his clothes. He gestured to the others. Get ready to move. Max, you're leading the way. Keep the bag close. Emma, get us through the security doors. Lila, still holding the gun on the disarmed man, smirked. You really think we need you to get out? You're the ones who are trapped here. The tension in the tunnel was palpable. The storm outside raged on, and in the darkness of the mine, they could feel the weight of their situation. They had the diamonds, but now their escape was anything but certain. With new enemies on their tail and the clock ticking, every second was crucial. The team moved quickly, their steps muted against the cold stone floor of the mine. The two masked figures were left behind, tied and gagged, their presence a temporary setback that wouldn't stop them. The diamond haul was too valuable, the heist too well executed, to be interrupted now. But the mine was becoming increasingly perilous, and every decision mattered. Victor led the group with calculated precision, his eyes darting around the tunnels for any signs of danger. Max, who had been gripping the diamond bag with a vice-like hold, glanced nervously behind them. We need to move faster, Victor. If those guys weren't alone, there could be more of them waiting up ahead. Victor's jaw tightened. We don't have the luxury of speed. We need to keep our heads down and stick to the plan. Emma, how much longer until we reach the maintenance exit? Emma glanced at her tablet, biting her lip. I'm not sure. The security system's been hacked, and I'm having trouble bypassing the new interference. But I think we're getting close. Just a few more minutes. Lila glanced over her shoulder at the tunnel behind them. What are we going to do about those two? They're going to be awake soon. They won't be a problem, Victor replied grimly. We'll be long gone by then. The further they walked, the more oppressive the silence became. The storm outside raged louder, the wind howling through the tunnels like a restless beast. The vibrations beneath their feet had intensified again, and now it almost felt as though the mine itself was beginning to give way under the pressure. Max muttered under his breath, his eyes darting nervously. You sure the maintenance exit is still intact? What if it's been sealed off? Victor glanced at him. It's the only way out. We don't have a choice. They turned a corner, and the dim glow of their flashlights flickered against the wet walls, casting eerie shadows across the passageway. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed down the tunnel ahead. Not the measured, methodical pace of their own team, but something quicker, more deliberate. Their hearts skipped a beat. Stay quiet, Victor ordered in a whisper, his hand going to his sidearm. The team instinctively pressed against the wall, blending into the darkness, hoping the approaching figures wouldn't notice them. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Then in the dim light, a silhouette appeared. Two figures, just like before. But this time, they weren't moving as cautiously as the previous group. They seemed confident, almost as if they were expecting someone. Victor's pulse raced. He signaled to the team, his voice barely audible. Ready yourselves. Max clenched his fists, his nerves frayed. What do we do now? We wait, Victor said. Let them pass. The figures grew closer, and the tension in the air was suffocating. The mine seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to break the silence. And then, as if on cue, the figures stopped. Victor could hear one of them speaking, but their words were muffled by the thick walls. I'm sure I saw movement this way. Check the shaft. They couldn't have gone far. Victor's heart rate spiked. They were getting closer. The only thing standing between them and certain capture was a sliver of distance, and the hope that these figures would decide to continue down another path. Emma pressed her lips together in frustration, glancing at the tablet in her hands. The interference was growing stronger. We don't have much time. If they're still looking for us, they'll find us soon. Victor's eyes narrowed. We're not running. We're going to take them out before they know what hit them. Lila, who had been scanning the tunnel, nodded. I'll take the left side. Emma, you're with me. Max, still holding the diamonds tightly, looked to Victor. What's the plan? We move fast, no hesitation, Victor replied. We catch them by surprise, and then we move on the exit. The tension crackled in the air as the two figures approached, their steps now almost audible to the group. Victor's mind raced, his thoughts sharp and clear. They couldn't afford to be discovered. The diamonds were in their grasp, but if they didn't act fast, they would lose everything. Now, Victor commanded. The group surged forward, moving with swift precision. Lila was the first to strike, darting into the shadows to tackle one of the figures. She moved like a ghost, taking advantage of the darkness to knock the man off balance. The second figure barely had time to react before Emma slammed her shoulder into his chest, sending him crashing into the wall. The first masked figure struggled, but Lila had him pinned to the ground, her knee in his back. "Stay down," she snarled, holding her gun to his head. Victor didn't waste a moment. He reached for the second figure's weapon, disarming him with a quick twist of his wrist. The man growled in frustration, but before he could fight back, Victor knocked him out with a solid punch to the jaw. Max, still clutching the diamonds, looked at the unconscious bodies of their would-be pursuers. "Is that it? Are we done here?" "For now," Victor replied, "but we need to move before more show up. Emma, how's the exit looking?" Emma checked her tablet one last time. "I've got a signal. It's just up ahead. Let's go." Victor motioned for the team to move, keeping a careful eye on the rear. The storm outside was as violent as ever, but now the mine felt even more treacherous, as though something sinister was lurking just out of sight. They had survived this far, but the escape was still in their hands. "Stay sharp," Victor said. "We're not out of the woods yet." The tunnel narrowed as the group pressed on, their footsteps reverberating off the stone walls. The storm outside still raged, and the sound of the howling wind made the air inside the mine feel even more oppressive. Victor could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. They were so close to the exit, but something didn't sit right. "We've got to be near the surface now, right?" Max's voice broke through the tension, his anxiety obvious. He glanced over at the others, his hand never leaving the bag of diamonds. Victor didn't look back. "We're close, but don't get too comfortable. The closer we get to that exit, the more likely it is we'll run into more trouble. Keep your eyes open." Lila, walking just behind him, nodded. "We've already made it this far. We just need to finish the job." The walls of the mine began to shift in texture, the raw rock giving way to more reinforced concrete. Emma, still holding her tablet, checked the signal again. "I've got the location. We're almost there. It's just through this maintenance shaft." Victor motioned for the group to stay low, his instincts telling him they couldn't afford any mistakes now. "Move quickly. We breach the exit, and we don't stop until we're out of the mine." The deeper they went into the maintenance shaft, the more the tunnels seemed to twist and grow increasingly difficult to navigate. But Emma's tablet remained their beacon, guiding them forward. The familiar hum of machinery echoed off the walls as they neared the exit, a reminder of the industrial complexity that surrounded them. Then, just as they rounded a final bend in the tunnel, the sound of footsteps stopped them in their tracks. The team froze, their bodies tensing. They weren't alone anymore. Victor's eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Max's hand tightened around the diamond bag, his knuckles turning white. "Who is it this time?" Before Victor could respond, a familiar voice rang out from the darkness. "Did you really think you could get away with this?" Victor's heart skipped a beat as a figure stepped forward, emerging from the shadows. It was the first masked man they'd encountered earlier, the one they'd knocked unconscious in the tunnel. But now he was back, standing tall and with a confident smirk on his face. Lila's eyes widened. "How did you—" He held up a hand, cutting her off. "Did you really think a little knockout was going to keep me down? You underestimated me, and now you're going to pay for it." Victor's mind raced. This wasn't part of the plan. The man had somehow recovered, and now he was blocking their only exit. The storm outside provided the perfect cover for their escape, but they couldn't get through this man without a fight. "How many of you are there?" Victor demanded, stepping forward. He knew that with the right amount of force they could overpower him. But the team was tired, and this man seemed far more prepared. The masked man grinned. "Enough to make sure you don't leave here with my diamonds. This mine is mine now. I'm calling the shots." Emma stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "You're making a mistake. You don't know who you're dealing with." "Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with," he said, his grin widening. "You're the ones who've been causing all the trouble, and now I'm going to make sure you don't leave here alive." Victor's mind worked fast. "Lila, take the left. Max, stay by the exit. Emma, stay on me." Without waiting for a response, Victor lunged toward the masked man, aiming to disarm him. But the man was quicker than Victor had anticipated. He sidestepped, using his momentum to send Victor crashing into the wall. The impact rattled his bones, But he didn't let it slow him down. He quickly regained his stance, launching himself back into the fight. Lila and Emma were already on the move, circling around to flank the man. But as Lila stepped forward, he whipped out a knife, its blade gleaming in the dim light. "You really think you can outfight me in my own mine?" he sneered. Max, still holding the bag of diamonds, watched helplessly. "We're not going to get out of here like this." Victor gritted his teeth as he locked eyes with the masked man. "You made a big mistake." With a quick move, Victor disarmed the man, twisting his arm behind his back and forcing him to his knees. But the man wasn't done yet. He used the weight of his body to roll sideways, throwing Victor off balance and sending him sprawling. The team regrouped quickly, knowing they couldn't afford to waste time. The masked man was on his feet again, but this time, they outnumbered him. Lila lunged with a speed that took him by surprise, grabbing him from behind and wrestling him to the ground. Emma moved in, her gun aimed at his head. "You're finished." The masked man struggled for a moment, his face turning red with fury. "You'll never get away with this," he hissed, his voice low with venom. Victor stood, brushing the dust from his clothes. He wasn't interested in talk anymore. "Get the bag, Max. We're getting out of here." Max didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed the bag of diamonds, clutching it tightly. "I'm not leaving without this." Lila stepped back, still keeping a close eye on the man. "What do we do with him?" Victor glanced at the entrance to the maintenance exit. The storm raged outside, but their only option now was to move. "Leave him. We don't have time to deal with him. He's not worth the risk." Without another word, the team moved toward the exit, their hearts pounding as they neared freedom. The storm outside raged even louder as they broke through the final door, stepping into the chaos of the wild night beyond. But they had made it. The diamonds were theirs. Victor glanced back one last time, his face unreadable. "We're out," he said quietly. "Let's go before anyone else comes looking." As the team disappeared into the storm, the mine stood silent behind them, the sound of the wind drowning out everything else. The heist was over, but for Victor and his team, the journey was far from finished. The storm outside howled like a wild animal, the wind lashing against the walls of the mine. Thunder cracked in the distance, its roar shaking the very ground beneath their feet. But the team moved forward, no longer looking back. They had come so far, and now nothing could stop them. Victor led the way, his senses on high alert. The storm was their ally, loud and chaotic enough to mask any noise they made. But even the storm couldn't drown out the feeling that danger was closing in on them. They had come so close to completing their heist, and now everything depended on getting out without being caught. Max, the youngest of the group, had been uncharacteristically quiet since the last confrontation. He clutched the diamond bag tightly, his knuckles white. He could still feel the adrenaline surging through his veins. The gravity of what they had just pulled off hadn't fully hit him yet, and he knew it wouldn't until they were clear of the mine. "Victor, we're almost there, right?" Max asked, his voice tense. Victor didn't respond immediately. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder to make sure the rest of the team was close behind. Lila and Emma, always reliable, kept a steady pace, their faces grim as they followed him through the rain-slicked tunnels. "We're close," Victor said, his voice low and measured. "But stay sharp. We don't know what kind of backup that guy might have had. There could be more of them." As they rounded another corner, Emma's voice cut through the tension. "The exit's just ahead. The security's down, and the systems are still bypassed. We just need to get through the final doors." Victor nodded. "Let's make this quick. We don't know how much time we have before someone notices we're gone." The maintenance shaft widened, and they could see the dim glow of the exit door up ahead. Victor's heart raced. They were almost there. The last hurdle lay in front of them, a set of reinforced steel doors that would lead them to the surface. They had to get past it and into the storm before anyone could stop them. But as they drew closer, they heard it, a low rumbling sound, followed by the unmistakable thud of boots on the ground. The sound echoed from somewhere deeper within the mine. The hair on the back of Victor's neck stood up. They weren't alone. "Everyone down!" Victor hissed, pulling them back into the shadows just as a group of armed men emerged from the darkness, their flashlights scanning the area. The team held their breath, ducking behind the tunnel's jagged walls. The men passed by, too focused on their search to notice the group hiding in plain sight. Victor's pulse pounded in his ears as he watched them move, each step taking them closer to the exit. "Where are they?" one of the men asked, his voice gruff. The alarms were triggered on the lower level. "They must be close." "We're getting close, too," the second man replied. "Check the shafts. The maintenance exit should be just ahead. They'll be trying to slip out that way." Victor's heart sank. They'd found the maintenance shaft. "They know we're here," Lila muttered, her voice tight with frustration. "What do we do?" Victor's eyes narrowed, and he made a snap decision. "We fight our way through." Without hesitation, he pulled out his gun and moved to the edge of the tunnel, ready to take out the first man who came into view. Emma, ever the strategist, joined him, adjusting her position with calculated precision. Lila and Max, already in motion, took cover behind the corner. Max glanced at the bag of diamonds once more. The real prize. They couldn't leave without it. Victor checked his watch. Timing was everything. He counted silently, watching the armed men pass by. 3, 2, 1. With a fluid motion, Victor sprang from his cover, taking down the first man with a single shot. The other two barely had time to react before Emma disabled one with a swift shot to the leg. Lila quickly incapacitated the third, her technique flawless, as she grabbed his gun and tossed it aside. "Clear," she said, breathless but focused. Victor wasted no time. He gestured toward the exit. "Let's go." The team rushed forward, moving as fast as possible. The final doors were just ahead, their gleaming steel a symbol of freedom. They reached the doors, and Emma quickly went to work, pulling up the bypass code on her tablet. "You better hope this works," Victor muttered under his breath. "I don't hope, I know," Emma replied, tapping away at the screen. "We're getting out of here." The sound of the door unlocking filled the tunnel. With a heavy groan, the reinforced steel doors swung open, and the storm's fury hit them all at once. Rain lashed against their faces, and the wind howled as they stepped out into the chaos of the night. For a moment, none of them spoke. They just stood there, drenched and breathing heavily, letting the reality of their success sink in. "We did it," Max said, his voice a mix of disbelief and triumph. "We actually did it." Victor scanned the surrounding area. The mine entrance was now behind them, hidden in the shadows of the storm. There were no guards, no sign of pursuit. They had made it. They had escaped, but there was no time to savor the victory. Victor turned to his team, his gaze cold and calculating. "Don't get comfortable," he said, his voice hard. "We still have a long way to go. The diamonds are ours, but we need to make sure no one comes looking for us. Let's get to the rendezvous point." As they made their way through the storm, their victory remained uncertain. The diamonds were worth millions, but so were the consequences of stealing them. The team knew that this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey, one that would test their loyalty, their skills, and their survival. But for now they had won, and that, for a brief moment, was enough.